Hello and welcome to the installing VirtualBox tutorial. Before we get into the installation, I wanted to go over what VirtualBox is real briefly and why you might want it and some of the features of VirtualBox. So first of all, what is VirtualBox? So in short, it's virtualization software for the x86 platform. What that basically means is you can emulate hardware using software. So let's say, for example, I want to install a brand new operating system and do some testing, or let's say I want to use it as a learning tool. Well, in the old days, if you will, you would take an old PC or any PC that for that matter and get your installation software, burn it to a CD or DVD, open a CD-ROM, DVD-ROM drive, put it in, boot it up, do the install from a clean hard drive, or format the existing whatever was on it. So that's obviously okay, and you can still do that for that matter. However, that's somewhat time consuming. You've got to have dedicated hardware. There's several things that are unattractive using that method in today's times. So here comes virtualization software to the rescue. So basically you load this software on your machine, and hopefully it's somewhat of a what I would call a beefy machine. You can use it, it doesn't matter whether you've got a laptop or a desktop computer. The biggest thing that you want to make sure of when you install a virtualization package is that you have enough memory. That's really the biggest thing, in my opinion at least. As far as a minimum amount of memory, could you get by with 4 gig of memory? Yes, but what's got to happen is your what's called your host operating system, and that's whatever your machine is natively running, has to share that total amount of memory with your guest operating system. And on top of that, you can have multiple guest operating systems running at the same time, and there's multiple reasons why you might want to do that. So that's why I say the more memory available, the better. And I would say, in my opinion, the minimum amount of memory should be 8 gig that you would want to use. 16 would be even better, and I'd say ideal would be 32 gig. You can get that much memory in a laptop. Matter of fact, the laptop that I use has got 32 gig of memory in it, but that's usually a high end. You're not going to get much more than that, if any, in a laptop. For a desktop computer, however, there's a big difference. So you can easily put 32 gig of memory in a desktop computer and not have any problems with that. So in short, the biggest computer that you can get, is from a resource perspective, the better, especially as you continue to get more advanced in your guest operating system setup, and you're learning whatever you're using virtualization for. You're going to find as you progress in its use that you're going to want as much resource as you can possibly get. So essentially, the VirtualBox software is going to put a software layer on top of your existing hardware and emulate the resources that's in your PC so that you can install a guest operating system. And that can be Windows, that can be Linux, several other older operating systems, Mac OS even, you can install in a guest operating system. For the most part, the operating system that's running as a guest doesn't realize that it's running in a virtual environment. Now, there's exceptions to that, but my point here is that you don't lose anything per se with running a operating system inside of a virtual machine versus hardware. Now, with that being said, sure, you'll lose like performance. You'll, I mean, you might hear arguments, but you're always going to have less performance in a virtualized environment than you are a hardware, what's called a bare metal environment. But with learning labs, learning exercises, there's really no need for you to be able to squeeze every little last drop of performance out of your machine. It's more important that you're able to run multiple operating systems, especially at the same time. Again, that's in more advanced scenarios. But just the fact that you can do that, and it doesn't impact your host machine, meaning that when you get through with the guest operating system, if you don't want it anymore, you can just delete it, and it's not like a messy uninstall of a software package where you typically, let's say you install Microsoft Office and for some reason you decide, somewhere down the road that you want to uninstall it. Well, there's going to be pieces of that left behind. That's not the case with a virtual machine. So if you get rid of a virtual machine, it's gone, and there's no remains. So that makes it really nice when you want to use something for a temporary amount of time, or let's say you want to take an application and you want it to be isolated, meaning that you want to install the application in an environment that doesn't mess with your host operating system's settings. So you could, let's say, you may be running Windows 10 on your laptop or desktop machine, and you want to install another Windows 10 inside of a guest VM. You can install it and then put your application on top of it. Let's just use Office again, for example. And now let's say that you can use the bloated Microsoft Office inside your virtual machine when you need it, and then when you are finished, you can just shut the virtual machine down, and you still have your nice lean host operating system that's got minimal software and minimal applications installed. So that's another use case for it. Alright, so there's enough of that. Let's go and take you through the process of installing VirtualBox. So here there's Oracle VirtualBox where I've prepped for this video. It's www.virtualbox.org, so we'll switch on that. We'll click on that. And the latest version at the time of this video is VirtualBox version 5.1. So we're going to click on that. And you can use Windows, OS X, Linux, or Solaris as your host machines. That's what's running on your, I'll use the term bare metal again, but that's your host operating system. Most likely you're going to have a Windows host. This tutorial is specifically based on Windows 10 as the host platform, so we'll click on that. And as that downloads, there's a second piece to this for installing after you get the base VirtualBox software installed. It's called the VirtualBox extension pack, and it lets you do some extra things that you might not necessarily need VirtualBox for out of the box. The biggest thing, in my opinion, that you might want to use the extension pack for, or the biggest reason I should say that you should go ahead and install it up front, is let's say that you have a USB device that you want to use by plugging it into your host PC. Could be anything. Could be this headset I've got on my head, could be a mouse, whatever. And you want to be able to use that inside your guest virtual machine. Well, you have to have this extension pack installed in order for that to work. So as you can see here, it gives support for USB 2.0, 3.0 devices. VirtualBox RDP, that's so that you can provide a remote desktop session from your host machine into the VirtualBox guest virtual machines. Disk encryption, so you can encrypt your guest VMs, and Pixie boot. That's a mechanism to be able to boot basically from your network card. So we'll go ahead and download that as well. Let's see. So we're at 5122. So we want to match our versions for the extension pack. Alright, so we have that downloaded as well. So now we're going to go ahead and install VirtualBox. So I'm going to click on the executable that we downloaded. So welcome to the setup wizard. We're going to click on next. So let's go through this real quick so that you know really what you're installing. So the VirtualBox application, that's the main application, software virtualization platform. We obviously want to install that. The USB drivers. So honestly, I don't know the difference at the moment of why this is saying that there's USB support here, but then you need this extension pack for USB 2.0 and 3.0. My guess is this VirtualBox USB support is for USB 1.0 devices, and so the extension pack allows for 2.0 and 3.0, which is basically your more speedy USB ports. So that's probably the difference. VirtualBox networking, so this is going to emulate your network cards. The bridge networking, your virtual machine looks like that it's plugged directly into the same network as your host machine. So that's your bridged, that's the meaning of bridge. So there's think of it as a bridge between the virtual machine and your wireless network at home, or your wired Ethernet network at home. Host only network is so that you can just have a let's say a network in a box, so you can have this virtual network that is just between your host computer and your virtual machines. And then VirtualBox Python 2.0 support, that's probably going to be for some what's called APIs and some different automated tools. By default, it's installed, so let's go ahead and do that. So this is your preference here, create start menu shortcut on the desktop. Honestly, I try to make this as less intrusive as possible. I'll go with the start menu entries, and then the file associations is so that let's say you're browsing your file system and you have a VirtualBox virtual machine, and you can just click on it. It'll automatically launch VirtualBox, and so that you can quickly start that virtual machine. So we'll leave that checked. And it'll warn you here that installing the networking feature is going to reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. So if you're watching YouTube, or maybe got some tunes on while you're doing this installation, most likely it's gonna pause for a second while the installation is happening. Okay, so this is a stock Windows 10 installation on my host laptop, and so that means that something called user access control, or UAC for short, is enabled. And so basically what that is a security Windows calls it a security feature, so that apps can't make unauthorized changes to Windows without your permission. So obviously with software like this, where we're emulating hardware, there's deep hooks into the operating system, it's going to have to make changes to system settings. So you definitely want to click yes here so that it can continue the install. And so this is basically going to install device manager, new devices in Device Manager. So we want to install those so the software will work completely and as intended. Alright, and then it's going to start the VirtualBox after installation. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll install that extension pack so that we'll make this a complete tutorial. Alright, so this is the VirtualBox Manager that you're seeing here. To install the extension pack, we want to go to Preferences, go down here to Extensions, and we're going to click this little button here that says Adds New Package. Go to our Downloads folder. There's the extension pack that we downloaded previously. Click on Open. Alright, so it says we're about to install the extension pack. Are you sure? Click on Install. This is one of those annoying little license boxes where you have to scroll all the way to the bottom before you can click the I agree button. Again, we're going to make changes to our host operating system. So Windows is asking, are you sure you want to allow this program to do that? Yes. And we've installed that successfully. Alright, so now we have Oracle VirtualBox installed, and we're ready to create our first virtual machine, which I will go through in future videos. Thank you.